Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is a video which is quite dear to my heart, one which I have been planning to make for some time, and which I anticipate I shall speak much more of times to come. I have called it The Ontology of Games, an Elegy to Childhood. So, I used to be at least a very big gamer, probably similar to at least many young people, perhaps some older people. And my relationship with games was not one of frivolity, was not one of merely wasting time, though there's a capacity to that. But really, I'd say for most people, especially let's not talk about mobile games, I mean real games, it's more an escapism. Most people who are really into games, especially like RPGs or some other multiplayer games, it's because it offers them a world. It offered me a world far more interesting than the mundane world around me, far more comfortable than the difficulties of life, but a world of mystery and adventure which we simply don't have access to, particularly not in modern society, growing up in a city where you're really disconnected from nature. You're really disconnected from yourself, from the filter, as we might come to call this, from our primordial nature and disposition. But more than that, there's a feeling that playing a game often invokes. In particular, I mean playing something like an RPG or a sandbox type of game, something like Minecraft, Terraria, Skyrim, that type of genre in particular, more than just shooters and things of the like, which are perhaps a bit more mindless and a bit more about the actual social connections you have, which is also very meaningful. But I, in particular, mean to speak about games with a rich world. And I call this the ontology of games because there's a very, very deep, in fact, there is something unfathomably deep about the idea of a game. And what we have to understand is that the idea that humanity has invented these games here in the 21st century, in the latter part of the 20th century, the fact that we live in a world and that we have created worlds inside of our world that we can inhabit and play and explore. You have to understand that this is not mere accidents or chance. There is something utterly, utterly fundamental and profound at work here. The development of video games is a part of a cosmic purpose. The fact that humanity developed video games at this point in time, that this is the era in which they were developed, that we were born in this era, and especially those who are probably similar to my age, maybe a bit older, definitely younger, that their childhood is fundamentally marked by video games, that in essentially their life world, a big part of life as they understand it, is through this electronic medium. A large part of their life is electronic. There is something ontological here. There is an ontological and metaphysical investigation to be had here. And I appreciate these words may not be familiar to everyone. What I mean to say is that there is a mystery. There is a mystery to this entire universe, which we no longer comprehend. The idea of traditions, of religious traditions in the past, and spiritual traditions, that their purpose was to initiate the human being into the mystery of life, to allow us to understand life at its deeper dimensions. Because the truth is that we do not experience the world. We experience barely anything of the world. Because when I say world, when I say self, when I say consciousness, in our modern society, we have a materialistic paradigm where we think of this world as but really just a sea of appearances, a sea of atoms. There is so much more to reality which we do not experience because we do not even know about it. But a large part of that mystery of life, which in ages gone may have taken the form of spiritual expression, today in our age has become sublated and subsumed inside of video games. That mystery of life, that feeling of mystery, of childhood wonder, for most people, is no longer in the world without, no longer in the horizons within themselves, but it is here in video games, it is on the internet, it's through this electronic imagination, this electronic haze of imagination. There is so much more to say here, but this is an adventure which I want to invite you to join me on, to understand the cosmological imagination. Because you have to understand that human imagination is not just an happenstance of evolution. It's not just some faculty that your mind somehow has, that you can ideate, that you can imagine worlds, that you can actually build these worlds, first perhaps in writing books, in drawing images, but now in actually building an electronic world. The fact that this is possible, that it is possible to take a world inside of our minds and actually now build it in this world. This is part of God's plan. This is a revelation of God. It is a way in which God is revealing himself, the absolute reality. And to partake in this world correctly is a form of worship of the highest degree. What is a game? I come from a mathematics background, and in fact, I've studied this question quite technically. The idea of a game is actually a very mathematical idea. All in all, it's essentially, it boils down to having a finite set of rules, or maybe infinite, but a set of rules which you can delineate, which generate a world. A game is a set of rules which generate a reality. That reality has a world, right? It is generating the actual landscape, is generating what it looks like. There's graphics, perhaps, there's text, there's story, there's characters. But it also generates a player. And you are that player, and you play inside of that world. You live inside of that world as a form of play. You play the game. But more than that, there is always an objective. And I know you might say, what about this sandbox game? No, there is always an objective. Sometimes we just don't understand what it is. But it is in the makeup of a game, in its fundamental definition, that there is an objective. Now, if you understand that, a game is a world generated by a set of rules. We have a very profound affinity to metaphysics. What is reality itself? How does reality work? Well, if you believe in mathematics, at least, that the world is founded upon mathematical principles, we see that the idea of a game, by this definition, is no longer something that human beings happen to do for leisure. This idea of a game is utterly fundamental. The laws of physics may be thought of as a game, it's a source code generating this physical universe. A game has some underlying code. It has a word, a kelima, the logos in Greek and Arabic. That there is some fundamental information, really a word, an instruction set, which is generating the world. The way that it generates the world is that you have a basis, that you have rules for how these basic elements form new elements. And that basically generates the entire world of possibilities. To give you an example, a mathematical one, you begin with the number 0. There is no number more simple than 0. It is irreducible. You begin with this irreducible basis, which is 0. There is a rule of generation, which is +1. I have this thing. Now I can build new things by this rule that I can count the next number. I can add 1 to make 1, and I can add another 1, and let us call that 2, and another 1, and so on and so forth. What is the world that is generated by just these two things? Two things, 0 plus 1. It is all of the numbers. These two rules generate the entire infinite set of numbers. Not just that, they generate the entirety of mathematics. All mathematical theorems, relationships, prime numbers, that there are infinitely many prime numbers, that every number has a prime decomposition. These fundamental ideas are also generated by these underlying rules. There is a source code to the entire universe. There is a source code to reality itself. The world is likewise built up from an underlying instruction set. That is what the Logos means. That is the meaning of the word of God. That God said, let there be light, and so there was light. Kun fayakun. He says, be, and it is. That is the idea. It is utterly profound. It is the hidden meaning which we have forgotten, which we no longer comprehend. We now think of this as some sort of primitive fairy tale, something primitive, some act of arbitrary creation. We do not understand that what it means is that that is the source code of reality. The word of God is the Logos, it's the code which generates reality. Whoops. And that we can tap into that source code, like the Matrix. We can see the code which generates reality. And we can become one with that source code. And that is what it means to really win at life. If you understood the games of the universe, if you understood the laws of God, that is, and you could live according to them, by definition, you would win, because you are on the winning side. This is a very, very deep idea. It's an incredibly profound analogy. I say that because there are multiple levels at which this is occurring. There's one which it's more than what we think it is. There is one level where we ourselves, this entire conversation is a part of the game. I am like an NPC. I don't really exist. You have to think of me as an NPC. You have to think of your finding this video as some type of pre-planned quest or moment which is supposed to occur in this game. It occurs for every player. Every single player will have a moment like this where they are told the meaning of the game. You are being told now. That, in fact, we can skip this out for a bit. I'll skip forward just a bit. You are being told here that the world is not what you think it is. You are not what you think you are. This world is an illusion. In fact, this is good. This world is an illusion. It is a simulation. It is a dream. You will wake up from this dream. Life is you playing inside of this game. It is you playing inside of this simulation. But what people don't understand is that this simulation is not conjured up by some aliens, by some higher civilization, by a machine. The stuff of this dream is consciousness itself. If you kept going deeper and deeper into the game, what you would find, that source code that you would find, is pure consciousness. It is God. God is the absolute basis of reality. I mean, that is what we mean by the word God. When we say God, we are not speaking about a being. God is not a being. That's not what the word means. God is that thing, reality, presence. We don't even have words for it. God is that. He is that which is beyond everything. God is being itself. It is what is there once everything which can be removed is removed. God is the abysmal darkness, holy terror, dark night, infinite mystery. He is the bottomless depth before which is nothing, but only that itself. God is infinite singularity, pure oneness. Like a black hole, it cannot even be seen. What we see is like the accumulation disk around the black hole, the accretion disk. This entire universe is like the accretion disk, which has been collected around the black hole, because this singularity, the singularity of the oneness of being, is so infinite that everything burns with light before it. It's like the universe itself exploded out from a single point. That single point is God. The single point, the oneness from which all things effulged forth, that is God. But now the laws upon which this multiplicity, this infinite world was built up, because it isn't just random, it hasn't just exploded into nothingness. We clearly see before ourselves that there is profound order at every single level of being. There is mathematics, this game. Mathematics is the game of consciousness, laws of consciousness. We know that this governs the world. The fact that the world is governed according to mathematics should have been the biggest wake-up call that we could ever have been given, that this world is not, the physical world is not real. The physical world is a simulation generated by the mental world. We see this so clearly. The very fact that computers exist is only because mathematics is more real than the world. So we can build a new physical world upon the mathematical world. Mathematics writes the language of the universe. That is the language of God. That is what it means to speak about the word of God. God is the singularity of being. The word of God is the instruction set which God has programmed into being itself, upon which it therefore unfolds. And we are part of that instruction set. That what I am is not this body, nor this mind, nor my thoughts. If you truly discover yourself, you find that what I really am is my utmost identity and essence is a line from the source code of God. That line generates me. That's why death is impossible. My birth was just a generation of that source code, of that line. My death is also a part of that line. It's all programmed, it's meant to be. Everything that I am and that I ever will be, everything that will ever happen to me, is the generation of this one line. It is the mathematical deduction, the possibilities generated by this rule, which I am. And I am generating this world. The entire world, not just my body, this entire world is a generation of this source code. And you are a line also. And you are generating your world. And we are all lines from the source code of God. And we all together are generating the world, because that is how God generates the world. Through us, through the beings which he has created, through the source code lines which he has written. There's Minecraft coming. But you should actually look this up. This is called Conway's Game of Life. It has a very simple set of instructions, but from that there is so much complexity which can be derived. And just mathematics itself it demonstrates to us how the utmost simple rules generate infinite patterns and meanings and order. Now, I do want to mention this. Let's come back to the idea of the video games, which at least I played. The one word which summarizes my experience is nostalgia. This is not a nostalgia for childhood. This is what people do not understand. This is the nostalgia of childhood. If you really remember, if you really, really remember and you go back to your childhood, you will realize that you are not nostalgic for your childhood. Your childhood itself was a nostalgia for a spiritual childhood, for something else. When you were a child, that sense of wonder you had was actually a sad wonder. And if you really remember, children are much sadder than people think. And your childhood is probably much sadder than you think it was. Some people realize this who have been through but many difficult experiences. But most of our lives is marked by wanting and not having. And that was perhaps most poignant in childhood. But when we were children, we had this primordial sense of yearning. We dared to yearn. We dared to truly dream and live in dreams. We allowed ourselves to feel the pain, heartbreak of dreams not being real. For most people, almost everyone, as they grow older, it symbolizes a loss of childhood, a loss of that nostalgia and that innocence, a hardening of the heart. Most people no longer allow themselves to dream anymore because dreaming is painful. Because the heartbreak which inevitably follows dreams is so painful that most people need to kill their hearts to no longer have to go through that anymore. My experience of playing games when I was a child was a yearning for a world, this platonic sense of nostalgia for a world which I had lived but was no longer there. A yearning for heaven. Because games are perfect. There are no irregularities, they are perfect. They have a perfect set of rules. You play according to those rules, you are rewarded for those rules. Everything makes sense. Everything is ordered. There is a path and a progression. You might think it would be so boring to simply have the entire path laid out in front of you, to know what's going to happen. But why do you play games if that's the case? You see, people are so fearful of life, so fearful of being trapped, of playing life and knowing that it's already determined. But is that not a game? When we play a good game, we know the ending is determined. We're not going to change that. But we play because the journey itself is valuable. In fact, it's more valuable than whatever happens at the end. The ending is only meaningful after the journey. There would be no meaning or reward to the ending of a game without having actually played it. That's what our life is. We are playing out our identity. So to get to that ending, which we already know what's going to happen, we already know what the ending is, but we still play the game because the journey is meaningful. But these games are a microcosm. They are a microcosm of the entire universe itself. They are beautiful because they are so simple, idyllic, perfect. They are comfortable. They are cozy. It is so cozy to play a game like this, to explore a world seated in your armchair, because then you are exploring it mentally. And it is so wonderful because ultimately we are mental beings, not physical. The body is just a house of the mind. Our real pleasure is in mental pleasure, not physical pleasure. We all know this. This is nothing new. We know this. Everything I've said here is an image of life itself. For all these reasons that we loved games, but we still love them. It's because what we really love is the game of being itself, the game of God, the entire universe, which is this game of God. This is the world. I think Minecraft in particular is perhaps one of the most spiritual games ever created. And I can make an entire lecture series about Minecraft, and in fact, I hope to do so, God willing. But there are so many spiritual mysteries to Minecraft, and what we really need is a phenomenology of Minecraft, breaking down the ontological structure of everything which occurs there inside. Minecraft is so clearly a world generated upon a set of rules, so mathematical and pristine. But what we have to understand is that this world is Minecraft. This world is made upon the same stuff. There is the same source code. Just that our code is more complex. That's why we don't see blocks. There's more texture. In fact, to my students, I always give this example when teaching mathematics. That mathematics is Minecraft, at least linear mathematics is Minecraft. Then you have to go into very advanced calculus to add curvature to it. So Minecraft plus calculus equals our world for all intents and purposes. Really much more than calculus. You have to add an infinite structure on top of that. Infinite geometrical structure. But there is a reason. Again, you have to understand there is a reason why this game is. I think it's the most popular game of all time. I think I would be correct in saying that. And it always will be. If not Minecraft, something else like this will be. You have to remember that this came out in a time when there were many more complex games. There were good graphics. There was everything. Why did this simple game, look at it, why did this capture everyone's hearts and minds? It's because of the ontological mystery which this game houses. It's because that this game is a mirror image of reality itself, and that when we were playing it, deep down our souls understood that there is something very metaphysical about this game. That when we are playing this game, we are communing with the source of reality itself. I shall speak much more of this to come, but I want to come back here and say that Life is a game. By that, I do not mean that life is not meaningful, that life is trivial. That is a wrong interpretation. Life is a game in its ontological structure, but life is a serious game with very serious stakes. The Prophet Muhammad said that men are asleep, and when they die, they shall awake. There is also an Arabic tradition of Alexander that when he lay dead, one of his wise sages beside him stood and said, كان بالأمس أنطق وهو اليوم أيقظ. That while yesterday he spoke to us in the flesh, today he is more awake. He appeared more alive yesterday, but this day when he is dead, he is truly awake. That we shall wake up from this game, but we can wake up now before we die. We can die before we die. We can wake up to the reality of this game and therefore actually play it. Because if you don't know what the game is, you are not playing it. You're just confused. There's a great saying of the spiritual master, Al-Imam Ibn Ata'illah, in which he said, Wallahi, ما أول يومك يوم ولدت بل أول يومك يوم عرفت الله فيه. He said that I swear that thy first day was not the day in which thou wast born, but thy first day is the day in which thou shalt know God. This game starts when we know that it is a game. And the tragedy is that we can live this life and die without ever having lived itself. When we realize what this life is and what this world is, then we wake up while still playing the game, and we can play the game. And it is the most joyful, joyous game we can ever play. That is why so many people live lives in frustration and depression, because they don't understand what the game is. You'll be frustrated if you don't know what the rules of the game are, or what the objectives of the game are. اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد. That know that this world is but a game, it is vanity and show. That ye compete for glory, that ye compete for the prizes of the world. This is how we live our lives. Right, tafakhur, takathur, it means to compete with each other. I compete with you and you with me. What for? For glory. To be someone in society, to be known. For things. For money. For women, for wealth, for whatever, for houses, whatever we want. We compete with each other. We think that is the game. Because we have been deluded and brainwashed to think that that is the game. The scoreboard is not measured in material wealth. It means nothing. Because we are not material beings. Again, that is evidence. We all know this. So why are we still so deluded into thinking that the world is about material gain? Of course, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you should be an ascetic, some type of naked yogi, and never try to attain physical possessions at all. No, we need physical possessions. We are in a body. We get them, but why do we compete with each other? This is the thing which really, really gets to me. Why do we compete? Why do we trample on each other's necks to get things? If this were just a matter of you pursuing something you want in this world, you want this much money or whatever, and you put work in and you get that, if that was all, and you innocently get what you want through your hard work, don't get me wrong, many people do. I'm not saying that's impossible. But if that was all, if that were all, okay, maybe there is a talking point there. However, that is not the world. The world does not consist of people playing fairly. The world consists of profound injustice, people trampling upon their brothers and sisters to get things. This is the delusion of the world. This is what happens when we don't know what game we are playing and what the actual progression here is, what the objective is. So what is that game? What is that game? Now, many people in the modern world are very antagonistic against the idea of religion, which is not necessarily wrong. Many people have valid reasons. However, this goes back to our not understanding what these truths, these deep spiritual truths are to begin with. As I said, what is God? God is not a being. God is being itself. God is singularity. He is the singularity from which everything has been generated. There are rules to this generation. That is the idea of the laws of God. That is what the Bible, the Quran speaks about, the laws of God, the rules of the game. That is what it means to walk in the ways of God, to know the rules of the game, to know God, and to walk in them, to play the game, to fight the good fight with the rules, playing according to the objective of the game. The objective of the game is growth. It is growth and harmony. Tawheed, La ilaha illallah. I made a video recently about what the meaning of Tawheed is. That it is not just oneness, it is making one. Tawheed is the process to make one. That is the objective of the game. The objective of the game, of this game of the universe itself, the grand dance and symphony of all the stars, is Tawheed, harmony. Harmony and oneness. And our part in this game, to win the game, is to become one. To become one with God. This state of becoming one with God, that is called God consciousness. Taqwa. In fact, to go in a small Arabic aside, the meaning of taqwa in Arabic has this idea of literally being around something or something being around you, wiqaya. To be God conscious in Arabic, muttaqi, what this literally means is for God to be your surroundings. That is what it means to tattaqi Allah. It means that God is your wiqaya, that God is your circumcircle, your circumambience. That means that the ways of God, I mean, the code of the game, the code of reality itself, is around you. Because, think about it, how can it be around you? Because you are at the center of it. Because you are at the center. And so it has become your circle, your body. What is the law? As it says here, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? What is the source code? What is the objective of the game? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. Love. Because to love something is to be one with that thing. That is what love is. Love is unity. To love God is to be one with God, to unite with God, to unite with the source of being. That is what this game is about. That was the singularity from which all things were made, and it shall be the singularity in the end. That is the end of the game. That's the end of the game. And we play the game because it is so infinitely meaningful to get there. And I'll perhaps make another video about this, but to give a very brief summary, if we understand that, if we understand what this game is, well then we can use the language of a game. We are a player here, right? We have this body, we have this user interface, which we call our consciousness. We are playing the game. What is the storyline? How do I go from level to level? What is the ideal progression in the game? It is the path, not just a tariq. It's not just a physical path to walk in the world. It is a tariqah. It is the spiritual path, the path within thyself. Leveling up in this game, to level up, is inside of yourself. All the levels, the darajat, the maqamat in Arabic, the levels of the game, they are levels of your soul. And when you attain to a higher level of your soul, that is a higher level of consciousness, that is what it means to level up. Your skills, your stats, those are your knowledges, your knowledge of consciousness. I don't mean information. I am not speaking here about memorizing facts. By knowledge, by ilm, I mean something very experiential. I mean something which you embody. I mean consciousness itself. There are modes of consciousness. There is the consciousness when I wake up, when I go to sleep. Everything that I do, how to drink, I actually need to drink my tea. There is a skill, there is a stat in our skill tree of drinking tea. And we can level that skill up. I can level up the skill of drinking tea. How? When I am more conscious, when I learn how to be more conscious when drinking this tea, I can level up the stat of putting on my shirt in the morning. When I learn to be more conscious, and it goes all the way up, I can be level 99 in drinking tea. What does that look like? That is why anything is possible in this reality. Once you understand what this game is, anything is possible. The truth is, we are all at level 1. We have nothing. We have no progression because we haven't even played the game at all. But through attuning our consciousness, through developing our consciousness and our spiritual powers, by leveling up, what we can do in this world, the spiritual ecstasy that we can attain is unfathomable. This world can be heaven. This world around us, this could literally be heaven. Everything which is wrong with the world is not wrong with the world, it is wrong with us. It's because we have failed. We are weak spiritually. If we leveled up, all of our stats, if we got to level 99 or whatever it is, the highest level, this world would be paradise. This world would be heaven. It would be whatever you want it to be. Because you are generating the world. You are generating the world. The world is your mirror. The world is merely a representation of what is in your soul. If the world appears dirty, it is because your soul is dirty. If the world is broken, it is because you are broken. If we were whole and perfect, the world would be whole and perfect. The goal of this game is to arrive at reality, to arrive at God, al-haq. It is to unite with the source of reality. Once we understand that we are consciousness, the currency of this game is consciousness. The purpose of this game is to level up consciousness. What we have before us in some reflexive mode of self analysis, self-reflection. The entire skill tree, the diagram of our consciousness unfurls from before us. And we see every possibility stretched out before us of these modes of consciousness that we can develop, the levels of consciousness that we can attain. This is the spiritual path. And this is the purpose of our life. The purpose of life, the reason that we exist, that we were created, is to play this game, not the game of this dunya, not the game of this illusion of the world, but the real game. The real game where we strive to achieve reality. And we compete against ourselves. And we race forth to infinity. That is this game of the world. But also, these are the deep meanings of what games are. So I want to open this up in two directions. That is the purpose of this video. One is to explain the idea of the spiritual sciences and the spiritual path according to this language. But secondly, it is to actually explore the language of games and to reveal the spiritual mysteries behind these games, which are quite dear to me, which were very formative and edifying in my experience. I learned a lot personally, intellectually, spiritually, by playing these games. And I'd like to revisit them and to perform a phenomenological analysis of their meanings. So that will also be some content that I make going forward. Whether I make a second channel to do that is still something I am deliberating. But regardless, let us leave this video here and let us continue this journey in future videos. And thus I bid you with peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And until next time.